Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Head Research Institute Alexander Forbes and Cabot Alitzhauser, Managing Director Asibe Holdings Ayabonga Kawe, and Chief Education Officer of Suits and Sneakers Mark Sham, as well as Group Executive Client Solutions Alexander Forbes John Anderson.
Right. Here's the hard part. We've fed your bellies. This is not one of those machies for oortjies too. Jesus, that was horrible. Are you with me? We've eaten, but we're going to keep you wide awake. You guys have been doing a great job on the multiple question on poll. So I'd like to jump straight into the next one, right? You guys have done a great... There were 331 answers to the next one. So, as you see up here, what do you believe is the function of employee benefits? And I'm about to activate it right now. Off you go.
We're not seeing it.
Oh, I love watching this counter go up. 15, 32, 47. You guys are fast. Okay, in the meantime, what I'd like to do is just head back to some of the questions. A very popular question that was asked is, will we get a copy of the presentations? I just had to double check before I answered, and it turns out the answer is yes. There will be an email link that is sent to you, so just look out for that. Some of the questions, guys, that you might be able to answer. I'm going to take two because we are running slightly out of time. Where does the role of mentorship feature in the future of work? Millennials tend to feel they are fending for themselves. Over to you guys.
Go for it.
So you got the millennial to answer the question.
Yeah, both millennials.
Look, I think, Mark, mentorship is so important, especially in this uncertain and changing environment. And everyone needs some form of hand-holding from time to time. But I think also it's so important to be able to align our aspirations, because how we taught in the education system is often, go to high school, go to university, get that one job, and stay there for the next 4 decades until you get the nice certificate that you can put on the wall. And you do sometimes need someone who can actually hold your hand as you think differently and act differently in this changing environment. So certainly mentorship, I think, features as part of that. And there's a big role to play for employers to provide the space, the safe space, for that kind of mentorship to actually happen.
I think if we go back to the old days of how people learn, they learned one from the other. It was almost this one-on-one type of mentorship. I think there's very much a reason for them to go back. I just want to quickly switch back to the polls. Do you want to just have a look at our results quickly, guys? Would you just shift there? 238. So, what do you believe is the function of employee benefits? And most people said provide a framework to address the financial, emotional, and physical needs of the employees and their families. Keep those coming. That poll is still live. I'm going to move to a second question if you haven't already answered. And and here's one that I know you will generally like to answer. How will a rise in virtual offices / working remotely affect organizations in terms of employee benefits?
Whoa, in terms of employee benefits?
Yeah, how will a rise in virtual, how does it impact employee benefits? Should we be for it, I guess? How do you handle that situation?
Look, it obviously is very relativistic. It's got to be according to whatever the job is. I mean, I happen to think the most exciting part of my day is being able to interact with colleagues. And I would never, ever personally want to be off on my own. But this kid, it's all I can do to get him to come into the office. He would rather sit back and work at home.
I can work on my couch.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so let me just pose it because I want to ask John as well. Because I agree with that. I think it's more about flexibility as opposed to I never want to go into an office. Would you agree?
But I mean, I think to answer the second part of the question, what does it mean for the benefits framework?
Yes.
I think it means a rethinking of how you do the benefits. So it can't be that you just have this one retirement fund that I'm a member of.
Yes.
If I'm doing multiple jobs, the role now shifts away from the employer to me as an individual to manage those kind of benefits. And it would be interesting to chat to Kulshan and Magritte. And they've set up something where you can actually have an online dashboard of some of the benefits that you're able to sort of have as a free agent, as they were saying.
John, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with all the points that were made. But I think today, the way that people engage in employee benefits is changing. And I think we're learning as we're going along. I think the form of it, some of it provided through employers, but you need to be able to then interact with other benefits that they have. But we need to look at not just the retirement fund, but everything in its entirety. And then actually learn from behavioral economics on how to engage and at what points to actually do that. But we'll unpack that a little bit more in some of the later sessions.
So quick question, let's be totally abstract. By show of hands, who would be pro remote working? Just show of hands, quick. Boom.
They all want to go home right now and start operating remotely, right?
Right, guys, with that, welcome back. We're getting into the solutions, but I'm going to hand over straight to these fine two again, and we'll see you in bits and pieces.
Okay.
Round of applause, please. There you go.
Okay, so I left that last conversation with kind of a real thunker. I said, retirement doesn't matter. Who's going to retire? And one of our group executives came up and said, you can't say that. Well, guess what? I'm not saying that. The world at large is beginning to ask the question, is retirement as we know it going to exist in the future? We're now moving into a world where we don't have learn, earn, and then learn how to live off of what you've earned. We have multi-stage life. We have lives that are going to come in and come out, and we're going to be working, and we're not going to be working. And that, more than anything, will change the nature of employee benefits. Because one thing won't go away. The one thing that won't go away is people need help. And we need to, first of all, understand what is the kind of help that they need, and how do we bring it to them. So that's what the cover looks like. If you want it, and you want to kill those trees, we can give you the cover and the rest of the book. But the key thing about this is we want to give you some building blocks. If we're going to stand up here and say, employee benefits may not exist in the way we think about it, employers as we think about it may not exist in the future, we're going to have to give you some building blocks. And I think Hannah McGreed started off with a really good one. And this is one of my favorites, because if I had to pick the number one question that our consultants are coming back to the research team with this year, it's, what should we do about retirement age? Now, how do we answer that question in South Africa? You know what the answer is. The answer is you got to make way for ducklings, as they say in Boston, which means I've got to get out and he's got to come in, right? And that's the model. But what Mercer did, which was really powerful, is that they asked the question, by removing me from the equation, am I actually improving the circumstance? And I'm sorry to get ad hominem about this. Ad hominem, that sounds very masculine, but anyway. Does it really benefit a company to do that? And the research that Hignil Banthian did at Mercer was really fascinating. Because he said if he took the two of us, and he went and measured Ayabanga and measured Anne, and looked at us in terms of our daily productivity, you're the man. You're the guy who wins, hands down. Yeah, we've got that straight. But he wins hands down, because in terms of sort of straight-through processing, youth wins. However, here's the surprise. If you do the analytics, and that's why our first building block here for you is to tell you, if you don't do the analytics correctly, you're going to come up with the wrong answer. So in that question of aging, they went and looked at the question of an Anne and said, Anne belongs to a group. Now, what happens to that group when you put Anne in that group? And what happens is something absolutely magical, because Anne's in that group. In a sense, I'm a stabilizer. I make people think more, I connect the dots for people in the way that, all right, you do it, but a lot of kids don't do it. And I actually enhance the productivity. So do you know that in a mining company, you would think the obvious answer is, take the old geezers out of there, they don't have any brawn left. But it's actually experience in certain aspects of mining that are hugely important to keep into the equation. So these are our building blocks. And the second one in here, you're going to talk about a little bit later. I'm not going to talk about it just yet. Let's talk about it now. this thing here, the customized benefit structure. But why are we matching the customized benefit structure with a well-being program? What's the thinking in here, you think?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, with all of the changes that we've been speaking about, the whole cookie-cutter, very uniform approach to the benefits profile or benefits framework that you give to your employees is probably going to quickly run out and become obsolete.
Yeah.
And surely you need a benefits framework that is responsive rather than one that is paternalistic, as you often say.
Yeah.
And so a big part of the well-being of our employees, not only from a financial perspective, but I think holistic well-being, has a lot to do with how you understand your employees. You understand where they are in their lives and what kind of protections and benefits that they need, not only for the downside, when they're no longer able to work or when they are no longer able to work as a result of disability and a range of other risks that might come up in the normal course of our lives, but also a big part of it is how do you allow people to tell you what they aspire to. So for instance, all of us want the nice house, picket fence, and the German sedan. And it's not wrong to want that, but how does your employer and the kind of benefits that they provide to you respond to that and give you the kind of advice that you need in order for you to navigate the complexities of some of those issues. And so in the next slide, we'll be talking a bit more about some of the family protection and personal improvement benefits that are part of a holistic benefits framework that hopefully can contribute to employee well-being.
So what it is for me is, on one hand, you're offering these customized solutions. And by the way, this is what's so exciting about technology, is the big thing that's changing in our lives is we can create individualized solutions for everyone in your fund. We can create individualized investment solutions, watch this space. We can create individualized risk benefits. We've already got it now. We can create individual benefit structures that meet people's needs. Technology is delivering it so that, that's the big mind shift for you trustees. You don't have this homogeneous bunch of members that you're responsible for. You have individuals. But why the well-being program becomes so vital is because we know that if you just give individuals the candy box and say, here, you pick, the problem of choice is huge. How do I know what I should choose? If I do this, if I pick what's behind the curtain and I don't pick the box, what's going to happen to me in 20 years' time? How is that going to impact me? So John's going to talk to us in a few minutes about the well-being program and how we've started down this route. But the key question is, how do you give a tool that, to employees that allows them to convert the entire experience into what I call a guided financial planning framework, and lets them say, this is what matters to me, this is what's important, how should I trade this off? So these two things, well-being and customized benefit solutions, go hand in glove. And then Mark's going to take us through on that skills development in a second. But let's quickly get to this stuff here, because this is kind of where you help me sort of think very, very differently.
Yeah.
And I guess I got to relate a story, because it's one of the first times that we met. We met on a radio program, as people do. And I didn't actually see him, I heard him. And then we started talking back and forth. And I asked him a really interesting question. I said, what do you want out of financial services companies? And I keep reminding him what he said, because it was so powerful. He said something that knocked me absolutely off my chair. What do you want from financial service companies? He said, products. And I thought, oh my God, how can you,
Because that's what is sold, Anne.
Well,
Sell
and so
products.
I asked him, what on earth do you mean by products? And the answer is, drum roll please,
Retirement,
No.
disease cover.
No, that's not what you asked for. You were very specific.
So I actually wanted a product that could tell me, as I left university, what car I could potentially afford, what house I could afford, and the different simulations of how I could pay for that. So the different permutations of how I could pay for that. And unfortunately, what the products that were being sold to me were being sold stock standard, very cookie cutter kind of approach, without any engagement on how I could tinker with it or create any form of alternative sort of terms
Yeah.
for the product.
Yeah.
And fortunately enough, digital allows us to do that.
Yeah. So what he said to me is that here's my life. I do pretty well. I come home with buckets of money, much more than Ann does. And what happens is when I walk through the house, that money isn't mine. I hand this over to my parents. This goes to my grandparents. This goes to my siblings. I think we call it black tax. And that's what I'm confronted with. So my product that I want from you is one that takes me from A, where I am right now, to B, I want my own home. Now the answer to that question is not, okay, here's where you go get a mortgage.
No.
Or here's how much you have to save every month. It's, okay, well the first step is how do I become creditworthy?
Yeah.
Second question is, do I rent? Do I
Or
build? Do I buy? Where is that advice framework? If you think that housing is the most fundamental thing that an individual can engage with, why is it not integral to every financial planning discussion that we have? It's not. Financial planners don't touch it. Financial planners out there. So how do we change that dynamic and create products that actually speak to the needs? But let's take through some of these other things that you've looked at.
So I feel like, Anne, you've spoken through much of the lifestyle aspiration and the sort of policies to family obligations, a la black tax. But I want to start with Second Life benefits.
My game.
Yeah. Because often enough,
Fifth
we
life.
tend to think that I reach the age of 60 or 65 and I'll have something comfortable to retire off of. But increasingly what's happening now is that some of us are getting retrenched before 60 or 65. If you work for GM or Anglo, shout out. But what does that necessarily mean from a reskilling perspective? What does it mean when we talk about second stage career, retirement careers? And surely you need someone who can talk you through that, who can help you think through some of those issues and also give you a sense of what is on offer. Similarly, if we look at health and physical well-being, in addition to the protections, there's a medical aid conversation, there's a range of other benefits that have to do with your health and your well-being that you would want to have a snapshot of, to see the suite of options and possibilities that are open to you. And if
So-
we look at financial well-being,
Yeah.
similarly the debt conversation. So Anne was talking about black tax, but the other flip side of it is how do you deal with debt? On your journey towards creating some form of wealth that you can pass on to the next generation, you can't really do that if you don't necessarily have a roadmap to dealing with debt. And so a holistic benefits framework surely must engage all of those key touch points that contribute to holistic well-being. And of course, we spoke about the lifestyle and aspirational benefits. So how do I get a house? Should I be renting? Should I be buying? If I am buying, what is the opportunity cost of doing so?
So there are two dynamics that come out of here. And you're sitting here thinking, my God, my company has to pay for all this.
No.
And no. I mean, our concept in here is to be able to facilitate the offering. We're not expecting employers to pay for this. We're not expecting that level of paternalism. But you cannot underestimate how powerful a thing it is if you can create an integrated solution for them. So let's take something like all those different healthcare things that you've got going on in your company. You've got EAP programs over here, you've got top-up programs over here, you've got, physical on-site facilities over here. And the point is, how do you integrate all of these things so that the employee knows, first of all, that it's there, but secondly, that there's some meaningful thing that says, this is a combination of things that you need. So what we're looking for is a construct that becomes a win-win for employers and employees. And let me give you a really good example. Do you know what came out as one of the biggest requirements of a certain population that were hugely valuable to us at Alexander Forbes? I've just had a child. Where do I put that child? And it's not like you're a download, Mark. You actually have this real human being you have to engage with. Now, last year we talked about, I think Letta got up and gave us a whole talk on education. And we said, bang for buck, it's not about funding your kid's retirement fund. I mean, or University education.
they have one?
So I'm fixated with this retirement fund. It's also about, it's far bigger bang for buck if you can get those first 1,000 days. So do you know how scary that is to a new mother? To have to go back to work and wonder what's going to happen to their child. So a win-win for companies, and we do it at Forbes, is to have an early child development learning center right there on the workplace. But not just anything. Just, you know, what we've come across programs that have come out of WITS and Harvard sort of integrated programs that do incredibly powerful things about zeroing in on the one skill set your child needs to survive in this crazy, crazy country of ours, South Africa. And that is social skills. And the ability to interact with other children from different backgrounds in one place is hugely powerful. Now, we all live in different parts of the country, parts of the city, and the chances of us taking our children locally and getting that experience are pretty much zero. But the workplace provides that. So we talk about these kinds of things in here, but the most important thing that comes out of this, again, is if we're going to offer these things, then the employer needs to know, is this adding value in our lives? Are we getting something back? And this is going to be where John comes in, because that's exactly the focus. It's one thing to go out there and put these things on the table and put measurement behind them as to whether or not they're improving the lives of our members. That's great. That's first prize. But if you're not also feeding back to the employer and letting them know, is this working? If I do this, does this actually increase the productivity of my people? If I do this, am I actually getting better engagement? Am I keeping people on board? If I gave you all of that, Ayabanga, would you come and work with me? Come on.
Do I have to answer now?
Well, the reality is, eventually, you won't be doing this either. But these benefits will probably be out there in hyperspace. It's not going to be the employer who does it. But for right now, you're the most important people in the room, you boards of trustees. And we've called you something very special that you've never been called before. You're our agents of change. That we are in this intermediate space between here's what we used to do, very paternalistic, here's what we need to do going forward, here's what's coming down the pike. How do we equip all of the people in the equation? So you are our agents of change. And if you think you're in the wrong conference because we're talking about HR and all these kinds of things and people-related stuff, think again. So take these concepts back. If you're not the right person to have the conversation with us, bring that person on down, you know, and let's start talking, because this is exciting stuff. But now I think it's time to find out the feedback to the employer. So John, over to you, and you're in control.
Great. Thanks so much, Anne.
You're good.